Thanks, Bobby. Gordie Gillespie, you said was Joliet Catholic football. No, Gordie Gillespie is Joliet Catholic football and will always be. Thank you so much, Bobby, Mike, Goose, Greg, all the girls. This has been a wonderful day. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. And, I've had a chance to know Gordie, be very close to him for over 40 years. And everyone I know that Gordie gave a nickname to had a cool nickname. Goose, Scottie Pippen, Jack-O-Lantern. There was Broncos. There was Broncos. We had a kid, Kenny Simpson, who was a running back in the 80s. You'd think Juice, OJ would be his nickname. No. Suitcase Simpson, because Gordie knew some baseball player back in the day that was traded so much he lived out of a suitcase. So he was Suitcase Simpson. Now it's my first day at varsity football at Joliet Catholic, and Gordie's kind of going through the guys, lining them up. Mike Condon over here, Mark Gould, Mick Janko, Larry Lay. He's naming all the guys, and then he goes, not so. And nobody moves. Not so. Not so sharp, get over here. Everybody got a cool nickname. And with Gordie, you think, oh, that's it. You don't realize these nicknames stick, because if you go out to any game now at Joliet Memorial Stadium, there's a lot of people in the stands that still think I'm not so sharp. I got to enjoy my time with Gordie through football, both at Joliet Catholic and here. And when I was young, I was a second string end. I maybe got into 3 varsity games at mop-up time. But I loved the game and I loved coach. And I'd find myself trying to stand between Tony Jantz and Gordie Gillespie every game because I wasn't in the game. So I wanted to be in the game. Gordie used to always tell us, if you're not in the game, you're in the game. And I would just listen to them as they were, Gordie's calling plays and Tony's making adjustments. And I tried to call the game in my mind along with Gordie. And, he saw something, he saw that in me and encouraged it. And I'll be forever grateful, because if it wasn't for Gordie, I never would have got into coaching. And we became so close throughout it. And I really did learn a lot about not only being a coach, but what it means to be a hard worker, someone who's dedicated, how to care about others. He was the constant example of that. Now, I had a chance to coach at Joliet Catholic, and in 1983, he moved me up to the varsity, which was a great thrill for me. So now, I'm his assistant with him at every practice. I used to gauge my freshman and sophomore practice so I could spend an hour watching Gordie on varsity. So now I'm and I'm learning. Okay, and we had a pretty good team. This is in '84. We're playing up at Notre Dame and Niles. Now, Notre Dame and Niles, those guys have a little bit of a reputation. They kind of like when you get in the pile, they say, giving it the business. They're kind of punching, grabbing, scratching, gouging. And we had a young fullback, Steve Polera, who was a junior. He didn't know this about Notre Dame. So anyway, we're going to play them, and I want to see Gordie's great, you heard it today, his great in-game coaching. What does he see when he's out looking at, he sees everything. What determines how he's going to call a play? He gets a great rhythm with the flow and calling his plays. And so I had that chance, because what my job was, Gordie would call the play, and he's constantly concentrating, always thinking of the next play, so I would signal the play in for him. T, 59 power, I'd do all the signaling. Now, we're playing Notre Dame. Polera's the fullback, first time playing varsity football. He calls a play called a 31 buck. That's a fullback running up inside. I signaled it, 31 buck. Polera hits the hole, 5 yards, tackled, big pile on him, and all of a sudden you hear Polera going, "Who the hell, forget his number, somebody's grabbing my," you know what, down in the man region. And he's screaming, and he's kicking, and he's jumping, and he pops up, and he's ready to fight anybody. Get the guys back in the huddle. I'm standing next to Gordie. Same play. Signal it in. There goes Blair, 6, 7 yards, makes a nice run. Again, there's the pile. I'm gonna kill that mother. Get his number. Will you get his number? Will you get his number? He's screaming at guys. Larson, get his number. He jumps up. Now you see he's in the huddle and he's just livid. He's barking. Now Steve was a large fullback, powerful, built like Fred Flintstone. Not the fastest guy in the world. So they're back in the huddle. I look at Gordie. Same play. I never questioned, like Tom was saying, you just said, yes, coach. I'm like, okay. They give the ball to Polari, he hits the hole, boom, 50 yards, gone. Flies right down the field. Nobody touches him. He's not that fast, but boy, he was fast on that play. And I'm looking at Gordie, and I'm like, I wanted to know this guy, his ingenious of seeing the game and knowing the play. He called the same play 3 times in a row. I go, Gordie, why would you call that play 3 times in a row? And he said, Danny, the lad was motivated. Psychology, sport, psychology that he had. What a great teacher. One of the things I would talk to Gordie quite often. Joan was very kind and come over and see him and talk to him even when it was getting late in his life. And he always wanted to know, I asked him how he's doing. No, how's the family? How's Jean, Danny? How's your mom? And then the same with him. And then he wanted to talk football. He was still drawing plays. He was still sharp. He's talking about, he could still tell you how to block Lockpour's downshift defense from 1978. He knew it was amazing, but he always liked to laugh. And we always made sure that at some point in the conversation, we'd reminisce on something funny, or whether it be Tim Allen doing, the guys from St. Francis, Tim Allen doing prep team, or, driving with him to Guernsey, which has been a theme running through the entire day today. But we always had a chance to laugh. And I think that's one of the sides that Gordie always talked about coaching, that you have to have personality too, a sense of humor. Let the guys know you're human. And he used his sense of humor so well. The guys that played at St. Francis probably recall us practicing at Guernsey Park. That's where St. Joe's Park is now. Right next to the St. Joseph Cemetery. Fenced right along there. Gordie got a lot of mileage out of that cemetery with his sense of humor. We were having a rough week, I remember, and we weren't practicing well, making a lot of mental mistakes. Gordie's like, we miss a blocking assignment, he's getting down, showing him how to block it. Then the back hits the hole wrong, and now his frustration is building. And he's standing right next to the cemetery. Okay, I don't mean to point at you like it's a cemetery, but he was standing right next to the cemetery. All right? So he's standing, and he's there, and he's like just pointing at the cemetery. And he goes, I am so sick of yelling at you guys. He said, for Christ's sake, I yelled so much yesterday, 2 of those guys got up and left. Practice picked up a notch. He had a way of doing it. He expected you to be ready for practice. He took great pride in preparation. Never playing the sport of football, I think he really enjoyed the game of football. For its military aspect, you had to be tough. He always felt you had to be intelligent. He always believed in brain above brawn, that you outsmarted your opponents, you outthought your opponents. And he loved the creativity and all the things that football allowed him to do as a coach. And that build-up of preparation up to the one game that week. And you better be ready to practice. And you better show up in shape. You better show up to practice in condition when we start our summer practices or our fall practices in August. Well, one year, and I'll tell you what, no one coached a big game better than Gordie, and he was wound up. during the weeks of the big games. So we're preparing. Our first 2 games this year, we're playing St. Lawrence and Mount Carmel. They're like 1 and 2 in the state. A lot of Division I players. And Pat Bezzavento was a quarterback, great quarterback back then. But a couple of his linemen, guys on the left side, didn't show up in real good shape. And we were practicing. It was an easy day. We were in our 6th hour of practice. And we're practicing on the north end of the stadium where you can see the bank across the street with the time and temp. And the temp was now about 101, 102. And it was one of those hot days. And now we're going to work on our passing game, 11 on 11 passing game, pass protection, the whole bit. So Gordie calls the play, we break the huddle, everybody flies up the huddle. The 2 guys on the left, I'm not going to say their names, 2 linemen on the left, come waddling up. They get set in their stance, snap the ball, their 2 guys run right by him, right into Bezzavento. Gordie goes, run it again. Get up there, they waddle up, run right by him. Run it again. Run right by him. He's beside himself. First, he's upset they weren't in shape, and now the lackluster performance and really kind of a lack of effort. So Gordie goes, we got St. Lawrence and Mount Carmel, and I don't know how we're going to beat these guys. We certainly aren't going to beat them playing football. Let me think. Now he's standing right next to those 2 linemen. I got it. Let's challenge him to a pie eating contest. The 2 guys got their heads down. They thought he was finished. They turn around walking back to the huddle, and he's behind them, which was basically reciting the Pop and Fresh menu. Cherry pie, chocolate cream pie, strawberry rhubarb pie, lemon meringue. They did pick it up in practice after that. Yeah, he could use humor. He had enthusiasm, but we were always prepared. We were always ready to play. We always believed we were better than our opponent. Practice was always tougher than the game. We all heard those things. He had tough love. He was a great disciplinarian, great teacher, and great teacher and mentor for me. Gordie said that when his time came and he would be up at the gates of heaven, that they're not going to ask him how many wins he had. No, coach, but they know how many victories you have. We are your victories. Their speakers were saying earlier, and couldn't say it any better, his legacy will go on and on. His victories is how he treated us. And when I was that freshman, little not so sharp, and I told my mom and dad, I want to be a coach, I want to teach, I want to be a coach. And my parents asked me why, and I said, I would love someday to make a young man feel the way Gordie made me feel. I'm still trying, because he made me feel like I could conquer the world. And you all know it too. All you need to do is talk to Gordie for 5 minutes and you can do anything, right? And there's going to be a day I'm going to pick up that phone, I know. But I will always, just as I go through life and say, what would my dad do in this situation? I'll be doing a lot of what would Gordie do in this situation. When he was working with me, and was gracious enough to come back as a consultant, work with quarterbacks, be on the sideline with me. His wisdom, and his whole presence, and helping me along, which is a very stressful, coaching Joliet Catholic isn't easy. I mean, you're following Gordie, come on, right? It's not easy. And he would always say things to me, right as the national anthem ended. Danny, see clearly. Are you seeing clearly? He's telling me to focus, block out distractions. He'd say, Danny, don't miss the obvious. He didn't want me to overcoach. He didn't want me to overthink it. It's the obvious. And the one thing he always told us before we went out, you know, go all out every play. I will tell my team that every time I coach, practice and games. We're going to go all out every play. And we all know he wasn't talking about the game. He wanted us to be prepared for the rest of our lives, to go on and be good parents, husbands and wives, teachers, and spread love to others. With that, Coach, you know, I can't thank you enough. And we will go all out in every play for Gordie.